You are listening to the Slow Living Podcast, and I'm your host, Stephanie O'Day. What if I told you that you could truly have the life of your dreams, the life you've always wanted, one filled with abundance, joy, and a sense of purpose? It's absolutely possible, and I see it each and every day with my coaching clients. It all starts with learning how to slow down. You deserve to live the life you've always dreamt about. Let's get started. Hi there, Steph here, and you are listening to the Slow Living Podcast. And this is episode number 74. And in it, I am thrilled to have Denise joining me. And Denise is a reader and podcast listener from Germany. And so enjoy, relax. A lot was discussed here, and it was just so wonderful and such a kind of flowing and just fluent and authentic giving and taking of our conversation. And I think you're really, really, really going to enjoy it. So thank you, Denise. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. I know it's going to resonate with so many people, and you will have helped an awful lot by sharing your story. Thank you. Welcome to episode 74 of the Slow Living Podcast. And you heard a bit of a sneak peek of my brand new friend, Denise, who I get to see through Zoom today. And she is in Germany. And I love everything about the fact that Denise is here today to share her story, because sometimes I don't know, I feel a little lonely talking to myself and typing to myself. So knowing that there's real people out there is just invigorating to me. So thank you, Denise. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steph, for inviting me. I mean, this is something special for me. As I told you, it's giving back a bit for all the things, all the good ideas you're mentioning to us. And you inspired me in many ways. And I hope you can understand my German accent, but I think in California, you're used to the German accent, aren't you, with the governor, the former governor?
So our governor is Gavin Newsom. Is he German?
No, I was thinking of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, Schwarzenegger. He's Austrian, right?
Yeah, he is.
The governor.
Kind of German.
Yeah. So I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we get a lot of tourists. So accents do not throw me off in any way whatsoever. But I was joking with a friend of mine. I don't want to say a stereotypical kind of self-absorbed American, but I guess I am a little bit. And she says, well, if you went to Italy, would you order in English or Italian? And I said, I would order in English. And she says, and she was making fun of me. And she's like, well, that's disrespectful. And I said, I know, but I would feel like butchering their language would be more disrespectful. And this is where I'm a stereotypical inappropriate American. And I said, and chances are they know English anyway, which is not nice of me. It's not nice of me, Denise. So it's something I have to work on. I know that.
Yeah, I think there are two kind of people, those who feel annoyed and those who really appreciate any effort you give, trying to speak the other language. I think this is, depends on people you meet. So I do not think you should put some burden on you in that. I'm okay with putting some burden on myself, because it pointed out that I have a little bit of an arrogant side in that regard, and I really should work on that. And I don't travel much. I honestly do not travel much. The kids are ages and stages, and that spending money on travel isn't something that we're doing right now, but eventually we will. And eventually I will have more time, and I should do some languaging. I know that about myself. I'm okay. I'm okay with shining a flashlight on my blind spots. I think it's all about connection. So if you would like to have connection and relation with people, you need to try to find some ways of communicating. And this it's not necessarily the language itself. Some people say it's the music, or it's only
how you express yourself in arts also. I think this is, there are different levels, and everybody would have his or her own kind of approach. For me, the English language is the mean to connect the world. So I have a lot of international friends, and I have a lot of relations internationally. So I think this is key for me, and therefore I love it. So the others have to bear my accent.
I like your accent. I think it's great. So I reached out to my email list. And so I know you're on my email list. And I just said, I'd like to get to know you. And if you have a slow living if you have a slow living story to share, write back to me and let me know. And if you're game to being interviewed on the podcast, let me know. And you wrote back quickly.
Yeah, I do have one. Actually, I'm a woman in a transition phase. So transition from that, what you're promoting very well every day, being a mom of several children. So I have 4, and being tied up with all those responsibilities day by day. So I always regard myself as the all things caring mom for the whole family, being responsible for everything, also for my husband, and yeah, pretty much what you keep saying, and starting with providing food, providing care when they are very young, having a look on the school's results, being a room parent, being it's the person who takes care of the homework with the kids, and so on and so on. And beside that, as most of the women nowadays, also working. Yeah. So this is a transition that has occurred in Germany more slowly, I think, than in the US. So we have quite some people of my generation, some women who are not working at all, but most of us do. And for me, it started quite early with the kids. So I was 24 when I got pregnant with my first child, with my daughter. And I was still studying at university. And this wasn't so easy, but it was very beneficial for us because we never considered the advantages and disadvantages of having the right, correct time. So we started with the kids there, and somehow it worked. So I graduated in 1995 from engineering geology. And it was clear, because that time I had already 2, I could not work on a construction site. So I was concentrating that time on tunneling. And you can imagine having a 3-shift responsibility on a construction site. It is senseless. So it cannot be. And therefore, I orientate myself, and I was looking for some other options. And I found that I'm quite good in pedagogics, and that I could give some courses and also some support at schools in didactics of physics. So I was always interested in these STEM subjects. And so over the course of the year, my family grew, and my responsibilities at work grew. Mm-hmm. And I was also freelancer for quite a long time. So 8 years I did it with my own company. So I had kind of consulting. And everything seemed to be fine. And we were living that time in Switzerland.
Okay.
And after quite a while there, and I saw that everything is going to be successful, the kids get more mature. My husband had a job opportunity in the east part of Germany, in Dresden. And I had to quit everything, and I had to quit also the people I worked for, and so on and so on. So I had to restart.
Yeah.
And I restarted again, and I studied again, and I did my PhD in material science, because this was the only option that I could have. And it turned out to be really, the thing that I should have done already earlier. So it was really a gift that I could do that again. and study and develop myself.
Was there hesitation at all that you didn't want to move, or was it just kind of, this is what we're doing now, and this is what the family is doing?
There was a lot of hesitation from my side. I knew that it was really sensitive to do so, but emotionally it was a break, and it was also a big challenge for my children, because they had to change the school system. So it's completely different. So for example, starting with the first foreign language in Switzerland is French, not English. Okay. And they came here, and expectation was, of course, that they are already way more mature in English. And so we sent my 12-year-old to Canada to some friends just to get some English knowledge within 6 weeks. So this was a challenge, yeah.
So, and the 6 weeks, it was kind of like an immersion, like we're just going to immerse you in English for 6 weeks by living in Canada?
Yeah, so she was there.
So then does that mean that your children have 3 languages, 4 languages?
No, 3.
3, okay.
Actually, German, English, and French, yeah.
German, English, and French, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did my way here. And I was lucky in a way, and I figured that out, and I tried to regard the positive side of it, that there is much better childcare in the east part of Germany than in Switzerland.
Okay.
Because, the approach is different. So the perception of women, what they should do, is quite different because of the former GDR notion, still communist idea. So everybody was working, male and female as well. And so all children had been taken care in childcare. So this was not usual in west part of Germany as well, even worse in Switzerland that time. Yeah, so
the perception of the countries here is that maternity leave and taking care of your children is a much longer and more involved process. So here, quote unquote, maternity leave is 6 weeks or 12 weeks, and then that's it. And I know in the different kind of like attachment parenting and breastfeeding circles, it's putting Switzerland and I want to say Finland maybe on a pedestal, that they get an entire year off of paid maternity leave. Is that correct?
I cannot tell you exactly for Switzerland. I only know for Germany when I was in that situation. Nowadays, the regulations have also changed, even for the better. But for me, it was that time. We had 3 months.
Okay, so 12 weeks. Yeah.
12 weeks off, which had been paid. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, you could stay home. This was allowed by law, so every employer should obey to that if the lady wants, up to 3 years, but not paid. So you could,
but you wouldn't lose your job.
They could not fire you, but you didn't have any payment.
Okay.
It has changed a bit, I think, now, but I'm a little bit too much away to say the exact regulation.
Right. No, I understand your children are much older. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your decision making, you're moving from one country, you're putting all of your children into a new school. You went back to school yourself for a PhD. So you must have been doing an awful lot.
It was incredible. So I had a tight schedule. So I had really, everything had to be on time, and I had really a timetable for every day, and in some situations it was like that at 4 in the afternoon I was already writing some lists what to go for groceries and what I have to cook in the evening, and so on and so on. So this was actually the time when I first started thinking about how to get this cooking better. So this is the moment when I found this crock pot. So I think this is the way I found you then in the end. So But I had to find some solutions on that because I didn't want my kids just to only eat the takeaway and just have this unhealthy food. And I just want to have also or sustain this family situation, the dinner situation, where you just enjoy being together and share meal. I think this is something very precious that you should never neglect.
Yeah. It's interesting because depending on the ages and stages of your children and what homework looks like and after school activities, sometimes those evening hours, it's just so cram packed that you can't actually even write down all of the things that you're doing. That now I'm emptying the dishwasher. Now I'm like there's just, it's a whirlwind. And so, so I agree that during that busy time for our family, having dinner already complete when we walked in the door was a relief that I didn't have to rethink about something.
Yeah, it's exactly that, and it's kind of that somebody's taking care of you if everything is already prepared. I mean, this is you can rely on an artificial thought person that is taking care of the kitchen because you do not have to take care of it anymore, and it's simply done. And actually, this principle is something that I made my principle for a lot of things. So getting things done, getting things to the end, not leaving open spots so that you do not have to pick them up at a later moment.
Yeah.
This is something in my young age. So when I was a young girl, I struggled a lot with. I was procrastinating a lot. But this was the moment there was no choice. Yeah. I had to be disciplined and I had to get things done at a certain point because I knew when I postponed that to a later moment, I would have struggled a lot and this would have been so painful. And this was my principle. And then if it didn't work out, I introduced to myself, and I really thought about that in later years often, but I established for me a principle that I called the messy kitchen principle. So if you didn't manage to clear up the kitchen in the morning, and you return from work, and the kids were hungry, what is the choice? Are you starting to clean the kitchen, or are you preparing the meal?
Right.
And I recognized for myself do things that aren't a priority number one, and this was having a meal. Right. And while the meal was already cooking itself, after a while, I could have a lot of time just to do the dishwasher and whatever. But I learned a lot, and when I look at my friends, a lot did it the other way around. So they always thought I can only start cooking if the kitchen is not messy. Right. And you can do the cooking.
You can. So it's really interesting. It's a perfectionist characteristic in that it has to be done this way and this way only. And a lot of it is ingrained in that we were taught this way, that there's a right way and a wrong way. But dinner is dinner is dinner. And I absolutely agree with you. And in cutting yourself, and especially women in general, slack and grace is so important. And I think we beat ourselves up in our brain an awful lot of thinking it has to look a certain way or be a certain way. And I absolutely agree with you. I prefer to cook in a clean kitchen.
Absolutely.
But there's no maid swooping in and cleaning it if I'm out of the house. So it is on me, but you're right. You can chop an onion, throw it into a pan and have it saute. And while it's sauteing, you can wash a few dishes or empty the dishwasher. I absolutely agree with you. So the messy kitchen principle, I think that's important, Denise. And I think that is a really good takeaway, that it's just okay. Same with when you've got little babies in the house and they want to sit on the couch and cuddle with you, and you think, oh, well, I can't because there's a pile of laundry there. No,
exactly.
It's okay. Let the laundry sit and enjoy the babies. Read the book. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is something that I reflected quite a lot because I did it in a way intuitively, but then I felt that I have to apply also this principle on other aspects in my life. And actually, so I did my PhD. I mean, it was not that easy, I have to admit, to have 4 kids in that challenging ages. So that my 2 elder ones, they were just teens then, and with all the puberty stuff that was going on there, and it was challenging, but I enjoyed it, and it was really refreshing for me working together with these younger people again. But it was the same principle. Starting with that, what can be done and what is really important, having a conference in front of me where I should contribute, and I have a great opportunity to present something from my work. I do not need to be 100% perfect with my lab equipment in that very moment. I could get everything perfect after I returned from the conference. By the way, I was in San Francisco, the first conference I attended.
Yeah. So what is that phrase? Perfect is the enemy of done. So if you're constantly trying to perfect, you'll never actually get anything done because there's truly no such thing. You can always find fault. If you're constantly looking for fault, you will find it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the backlash of the whole thing is, and this is about coming back to my transition now. Of course, you have to do compromises. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not everything feasible. Not everything comes to that point that you would like to have it for each single action you do in your life. And it is also very, very dense, the life. So there's very little time to take a breath, to lean back and to reflect. And this sometimes prevented me also from rethinking about my emotional situation. So I was just doing one thing after the other, and I obeyed to the schedule. So it was, I had to. I mean, you never question that, or at least I never questioned that. And I mean, it was beneficial for a certain amount of time, but now the kids are out of the nest. So my youngest one left for the university last year, and now I have some moments that I can reflect, and I can feel deeper about my emotions. What is my situation now? How does it look like, or how do I feel about it? And it is also in a way challenging. It's not only beneficial because you suddenly discover, not everything that you're doing, not every choice you did was maybe that what you really emotionally wanted.
Yeah. There's a lot of self-forgiveness of your younger version of you that kind of comes up when you look back. So some things you look back in rose-colored glasses and you think, that was just amazing and wonderful. Even though when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel amazing and wonderful. But then there's other times when you look back and you realize, I could have handled that a bit better. I was a little snappy. I was a little yelly. I was flippant when I shouldn't have been. And then dealing and processing with those thoughts and feelings and emotions, that's the work, and truly feeling them rather than numbing them out or shoving them aside. And it happens. You're sort of forced to come to that terms. I mean, hopefully and thankfully, you're doing it when you're young enough and healthy enough that you can delve into them versus like on your deathbed and you have all these regrets. And I'm just using that as a metaphor. I know you know what I mean.
So, I mean, this would be the big ones if you would have regrets. It's not the kind that I had made some wrong decisions on my way.
No, so I'm talking about little things like all of a sudden it's 8:15 at night and the dishwasher overflows and you're yelling. Those are the kind of regrets that I have.
Okay, I think everybody knows that situation. But what is really important to me is knowing who I am. And it was quite comfortable to lean on that schedule, this tight schedule, not to rethink that. I mean, this is also kind of a, let's say, laziness in a way. Sometimes it was really comfortable not to think too deep into who I am, but I could not refrain from that anymore because there was not that tight schedule anymore. I'm really, as a manager, I have a lot of duties and I'm traveling internationally and so on. So I could also hide behind my business schedule.
Right.
But I think I have more spaces and times where I can just sit aside me or look into the mirror and say, what did you do? Or is it that what I want to be? And so what I figured out in the last year, in the last 12 months, I know what I can and I'm absolutely aware what I cannot. Which I formerly did not accept so much. I never accepted that there are things I would not be able to. So I always had the notion that if I only worked enough, I could approach everything, which is certainly nonsense. I mean, if you look at that deeper, but this was a little bit kind of my self-perception. And I now can say, first of all, it's not necessary that I can do that because nobody expects me, nor do I.
Right.
And on the other hand, it's good also to give other people the respect that they are doing things, that they can do things that I cannot. Just knowing that I have some talents that I can give, that I can feed back to the society, that I can give back, bring into my company, bring into my family, bring into other relatives. So I think there is a lot of things that I can bring in, but there are definitely things that I'm weaker than others, and that's okay. What I could not accept before, but it's okay.
Yeah. So you had mentioned looking in the mirror. Do you do mirror work? Do you talk to yourself in the mirror?
Not consequently, certainly, but from time to time it happens. So, particularly
do you feel like you're going back and sort of comforting and talking to you of a few years ago and telling her, you did a really good job. You've got a lot going for you. You're pretty awesome. You made some great choices and decisions and it's pretty remarkable, all of the things you've done and accomplished.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly the development I underwent in the last 12 months. I never did it before. But I think this extra space I got timely and also, from space, because I could simply sit in one room and nobody entering all of a sudden. So this is something that I really could reflect that. And I found out that I could do some things, not so badly. And I'm thankful for that. And it's not congratulating myself for that. It's more kind of a big thankfulness that I have that I could experience that. That I had the power to decide things I was also fortunate, of course. This is nothing that you have in your hands, but I was fortunate to meet the right people at the right time. But that I could grab that situations and make something out of it, and that I could develop them on my purpose. I think this is.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I can see how it would, for at times perhaps be difficult to grapple with that you are lucky and fortunate and and privileged, perhaps maybe in some ways. But then when the opportunities come, you recognize them and you have to actually do something with it. Whereas some people could have been born into similar luck and perchance, but they don't do anything. And you have done an awful lot and have raised wonderful humans and have had a good career. And I like it that you're taking the time to acknowledge that, yes, perhaps some luck occurred. You still were getting on the airplane and you still were leading the presentations and you still were going to the classes and writing the dissertations and doing all of this. That was you, and feeding the babies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was very, very happy to have both sides of my life. So when I was starting working in Switzerland, it was at a science center. It's it's the carbon copy of the Exploratorium in San Francisco, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And
that has turned incredibly expensive.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of also money to be spent for the exhibit. So, but anyhow, I started there as an assistant to the head of exhibition, and I was also in charge of developing a new exhibit there. And
what a fun job!
It was such a fun job, yeah. But I was the only working woman there with kids. So all the other women working there, and there were only a few, of course, but those who were there were not married, and no one of them had children, because you had only those two choices in Switzerland that time. Either you become a mother of kids and have a husband and a family, or you're a working woman. And you can imagine it was not so easy, because I had 3 that time.
Yeah.
And they could not understand how arrogant I could be coming there, having 3 kids and doing this wonderful job.
Yeah.
This was a lot.
So do you mean arrogant in that they think you should take a step back and let someone else do the job? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, I think what they meant, what they were so angry about, is that I had the 2 worlds in one life, and they did not have it, and they were jealous. It was certainly, how should I say, they were brought to that situation because society wanted that to be for them. So it was negatively sanctioned that you should never have kids if you would be successful in work. This was something that came together at the time. Weird thing. Nobody could think of that today. But that time, you are either a naughty mom, neglecting your kids, and then you're working, or you just was the caring mom and you would not work. This is
so on a daily basis, did you feel this kind of conflict in your body and you were grappling with it? It sounds stressful.
It was stressful in terms of relation with these ladies. It was not stressful for myself, because I'm so lucky that I have a husband who supported me always, and he always wanted me to become successful also in work. So he also wanted somebody to talk to on the same level, what was very important to him. And so I was fortunate, and I'm very thankful. I can repeat it several times. Yeah. But it was a stressful relation with these ladies, because they missed something in their life, and they saw it pictured in front of them. It can be. And this made them a lot of stress themselves. Yeah. It was not my stress, but it was theirs.
So if you now, with the wisdom and the kind of life experience that you have, if you could go back and talk to the younger version of you, what advice would you give her?
First of all, I would say repeat it because it was a very nice job. I loved it, and I, I, it was the right decision to do that. But maybe I should be more understanding and maybe more empathetic to these ladies, to this secretary of the director or so. And yeah, I do not know if I could have comforted them in some way. I do not know, but maybe open the eyes a little bit more in conversations about these different opportunities. I mean, it was a societal development stage. It was 10 years later, nobody was talking about that anymore. But I felt pity, and maybe I should have opened my mouth a little bit more about that pittiness that I felt in front of them, and this could have relaxed them a bit, giving them more relief. I think I could not have changed their lives. I mean, this is something. They have become 50 years old, decided not to start a family. And what should you do? I mean,
right.
It's only a question of understanding them and with their decisions and their time and their place they are.
The transition and the kind of coming into peacefulness that you have now, and then you look back at you who were scheduled and sometimes maybe used the schedule and the calendar as a bit of a crutch to keep you from feeling all your feelings and acting on your emotions and sort of helping yourself understand the day-to-day activity on a deeper level. Is there anything you're doing now that you wish or would advise someone who's currently in the trenches to do?
Yeah, actually, first knowing who you are. I think this is this mirroring that you mentioned, this act, talking with your own child and yourself.
Do you meditate?
I do.
Okay.
I'm praying. So this is, I think, pretty close to each other. So
absolutely, praying and meditation are the same side of the same coin, as far as I'm concerned. Because I think sometimes people think meditation means you're quieting your mind and there's nothing in there except for cotton, and that's not right. You're still a human with all of your brain things. It's just the idea that you're perhaps maybe not dwelling or worrying on one specific thought, and you just sort of let it pass. And then I like to just ask myself questions. So you saying, knowing who you are. So maybe just really sitting and quiet. And then if you liken it to prayer, there's God answering you, or your inner being, or your thoughts, or your subconscious, depending on what your personal beliefs are. But when you ask good questions, you just sort of, the void gets filled with some sort of answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all about reflection. And this is also what I did with my kids with the evening prayer, for example, that sitting together at the bed and reflecting that what has been achieved or not achieved in that day, and how you felt about that, and what could have been done better for yourself, or where you felt not in the right place, or where you felt in the right place. I think this is something that is so important to reflect. And from time to time, I start journaling as well. So I'm not the best one in writing down my thoughts. So
that's okay. I just gave a class yesterday. I gave a class yesterday, and someone said the same thing. It's like, do I have to journal? I'm like, no, no, you have to do what feels good to you. So I do like journaling only because I'm a writer. And so I like to go back and look at my thoughts, and sometimes some really good things bubble up. But journaling also helps slow your thoughts down, because you're thinking them and then your brain has to tell your hand to write. And so it's just a different way of processing.
absolutely true. And what I figure out when I manage to journal, which I do sometimes from time to time, and it's not what I achieve daily, but when I do it, I'm always astonished what I have written then afterwards. And I'm reading that maybe 2 or 3 days later. And I realize that what I write down is much more serious than this vanishing thoughts that you always have. So it's like a thought storm that you might have in the evening if you're reflecting things. And you feel in the moment they are very important, but if you try to memorize them or remember them the next day, they might be gone. But if you feel them so important that you write them down, they are something. And this is of a different quality. This is what I feel. So it's from time to time, I have the desire to write something down. And when I read it again after a certain period of time, I'm really, really thankful that I could do that. And I also reflect that for myself as a step that I got some knowledge on a certain topic. I actually
you have a lot of knowledge. So I mean, the fact that you've had such just a very vibrant and colored life, and having a PhD and giving the presentations, like you already know, lots and lots and lots of things. You're able to do that. But what's interesting with journaling is trying to keep yourself from editing and trying to make it perfect. And the humbling of not knowing what might come out. It's an interesting exercise. And especially, and I'm not calling you a perfectionist in any way, but I do end up on the phone with a lot of kind of type A driven, list oriented, checkmarky people. And they do have some perfectionism in them. So yeah, cut me off if I'm way off guard.
No, I completely agree. I think it paves the way for the subconscious things that you're carrying around with yourself. And coming back to the knowing who I am, it's not only about the visible, the surface character you have. It's a lot about your subconscious. So what shaped you in your heart, in your character? I do not want to talk about childhood. I mean, this is something, but
right.
It's always about choices you did, I think, also in your early adult times. And
sure. So it goes back to the whole nature versus nurture kind of thing. Yeah. I once was working a bit with a spiritual teacher, and the idea for a meditation is to just sit and instead of like the who are you, which is kind of really big and esoteric and it might freak people out, you start with, I am a lump of flesh. And then you just say, and then other things just kind of bubble in and it's just kind of interesting. I've never journaled it out because my thoughts are too fast for me to record. At some point it would be fun to have, I'm sure technology will figure this out, some sort of USB drive that I can just put in my ear. I have so many books in there, but they're not.
I can understand that so well. I sometimes I thought I would need a voice recorder to collect all my ideas that I have. But I think that the most important work, and journaling serves very well for that, is prioritizing these things and giving them or ordering the value to that that they actually do have. Because as I told you, it's a kind of
so prioritizing what you're currently working on or what your future self wants to create, and then prioritizing so then you have kind of a day-by-day action plan. Is that what you mean? Kind of.
Yeah. So particularly if you're trying to shape your future or have some decisions to be done, you try to consider everything at the same time. And maybe deep in your belly, you already know what would be right, but you would not like to accept it. Yeah. And sometimes it's easier then to use these kind of techniques to get to that very bottom where you are honest as honest can be, and then you know what to do, and it spares a lot of time.
Yeah, it really does. I like that analogy of when you look within and you're asking yourself, well, what do I do next? The answer always comes. It does. It will flow up. It absolutely will. Yeah. I want to be cognizant of our time, but I also know that you have a book recommendation, and I love to recommend books and different resources. And I like that your book recommendation might be surprising to our listeners.
Yeah, I wrote this about a children's book. Yeah, so I read your lines when you felt that January, this grayishness, and yeah, when you're really not that well up in that moment, and I think that's very normal. But I love that author that is very, very familiar in Germany, and even I think in whole Europe. I'm not sure if you know that author in US as well, Leone. So it's about a little mouse. Frederick.
Yeah, Frederick the mouse. Yeah.
So it is known in the US?
Yes. So we're actually in the middle of a 1,000-piece puzzle, and it's children's book images, graphics, covers. What is the word? Yes.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful because you can just work on one little piece at a time. But Frederick the Mouse, I am so glad you brought it up, though, because I don't know if I've ever actually read it. I've just heard of it.
Oh, really? It's a very simple story, actually. So there is a one.
That's okay. I'm a simple person.
It's a mouse in a flock. Is it flock the right word for that? If you have a group of mice, I do not know.
Sure.
Yeah,
I don't.
Okay. You have a flock.
We're going to shelve perfectionism for today. So it's a flock of mice. Okay, that's what it is.
Okay. So they are working. So some of them are collecting some grains. Some are providing the right accommodation for the winter sleep. So when they are covered under snow, and then they can survive comfortably in the dark winter times. And all of these people in this flock, or all these mice, are very, very handsome, and they're collecting a lot, and they're doing quite a lot of effort for the whole group, kind of social behavior, what they wanted to demonstrate there. And there's one who does not obey to that. There's only one sitting at the side. This is Frederick, and he's watching around, and he's looking at the sun, and he's counting the daffodils and so on, and the birds. And the others in the flock, they get angry because he doesn't work. And he keeps telling, I'm collecting colors, or I'm collecting stories, and I'm collecting the beams of the sun. And it had been that way in the winter times when all the things in store, the grains, and so they had been eaten up, and it became cold, and nobody was really of a good mood anymore when this little Frederick started to tell about the beam of the sun. And he tells about the warm perception, the absorption of warmth that he had on a sensation on his body when the sun hits him. And so all of a sudden, the flock feels that as well. And he's telling about the colors, and he's telling about the flowers and the animals and so on. And this made these people in that flock, or these mice in that flock, more confident, and took them out of the depression. Yeah. And I think sometimes, and this is for me very important, not only for myself, but I have to go through the summer as well, collecting all these energy in a way, looking at the beauty and looking at the beneficial things that we cannot store somewhere in a cabinet.
Right.
And then If January comes, remember that again and put it out of your memory and rethinking about the blue sky. And yeah, probably in California you do not have that big problem. We do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's cold.
So I liken it to like stop saving the fancy soap for the guests and go ahead and light the yummy smelling candles and don't save for a special occasion or for guests that may or may not come. You are the guest in your home and treat yourself well. Also, when you were talking about Frederick, what came up in my brain was the idea that everyone has a gift and it may not match the person right next to you or the person down the street, and trying to model the exact same way someone else does something isn't helping you. And so really go within and figure out what your gift is, what sparks light in you and helps you be an inspiration to others. So and humans are judgy, judgy people, but just because maybe your house looks a little different, it doesn't mean inside is disheveled. So if the front is disheveled, it very well could be because you're spending all of this time making memories and cookies and cuddling up with your children. And the idea that we all have to be this sort of like cookie cutter Stepford image is not healthy. And so I love that about Frederick. I love that when people zigged, he zagged. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's exactly what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. Thank you. So I'm in the middle of a 30-day Amazon fast. So when my fast is over, I have a list, and then because of you, I will prioritize what I will purchase when my fast is over. But that sounds like a great book, and chances are I can find it at the library to also.
Yeah, maybe. And as an advice, it's always nice for the kids as well, even if they're grown up. So still my kids.
Oh, yeah.
Being above the 20s. So yeah. they really love it as well still, because it reminds you about your true purpose. So what you have to do for yourself to be satisfied with yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you are satisfied with yourself, with your choices that you are doing, alongside that you are, then all the others profit from that as well. It's not the case that you are isolated then. So everybody brings in a certain kind of salt into a society.
I agree. Before we log off, because I know we're running a little late and I want to be respectful of your time, because your children are grown and have flown the nest and all of these things, do you feel optimistic about the future? Are there things that you're looking towards and are excited about, or are you still kind of processing? Are you in this processing stage and you're not quite ready to be optimistic?
I am very optimistic, but probably it's also part of my character. So I have a lot of ideas what could be coming next, and there are a lot of open things on my path in front of me. So. Yeah, I'm optimistic in that way that I see that what I could achieve, where I want to live, for example, with my husband. So in the future, so I'm commuting 500 kilometers each week to get to my work, which is a decision I did when my kids were old enough. But I was really determined to do the job I wanted to do, and it was the right choice. And I feel that if I have some other choices to do in the future, and there will be some, I'm pretty sure, I will certainly have that openness, and I will have, I will have the opportunity to do that in that way that is most beneficial to me. And this is a gift,
Yeah, I think it's a gift too. It's interesting because it's important to live in the present, but in order to really appreciate the present, you have to kind of know where you're going and know that you're on the right path. And when you feel as if a chapter is ended or over and you don't have something to look forward to, it's when people feel kind of floundery and upset and just a bit discouraged. And so I know when it comes to retiring, you want to have the mindset of you're not retiring from a job, you're retiring into this next kind of exciting portion of your life.
The question is, oh, I'm sorry, I just need to sneeze here.
Oh, you're.
We're still separated from
I mean, we are real people, and real people have sneezes. I think that's.
I think if you have that notion that the book is closed, then you might get stuck. So the book of life, I mean. So,
right.
Some friends of mine, they feel like because parents are passing away now in the moment.
Yeah.
So you are the next, huh? This can be a notion. But actually, if you started from that side, then it's probably very depressing. But if you look at what is possible, and now we come back to that messy kitchen, huh? What can be done? What would you like to achieve in the future? It doesn't necessarily need to affect you, what others are experiencing. So if their life is at the end, because this is very natural and this is how it should be at a certain point of life, that's okay. But it's not my life. My life is at that very moment, hopefully. You never know, but hopefully.
Right.
Still some ways to go. And and this has to be filled. And there are a lot of ideas if you allow them to exist. And if you allow them to come up. And then, of course, life is going on. And then you have some choices to do. And you probably will go for that, what you prefer most.
Yeah. And grief is such a long and winding road for everyone when they are losing parents and losing loved ones. But if you take a few minutes and just think from the loved one's perspective, they would not want you to stop living at all.
No, nobody would. But some people feel if there are too many people passing away in a short time, it's understandable that you get depressed and that you are lacking the relation and everything. But it's not about only the relation you had with other people. It's about the relation that you have with yourself, and it's about what you would like to achieve in your life yourself. People, I mean, maybe this is a little bit extreme, but people who really cannot get to their feet again after they have experienced a lot of losses. I know that. I know it from my personal experience in the last 2 or 3 years. But if they do not get back to their feet, it can be that their overall problem in their life is that they need other people to approve them permanently. They are not really enough for themselves. So they would need somebody who says then that they are so valuable.
Yeah.
And if they are now gone,
external validation instead of internal.
Exactly. It's probably the right wording for that. So if you're used to only flourish in that way that other people give you acceptance and value, then of course this is way more difficult to get back on the feet.
Yeah. You, it sounds so cliche and bumper stickery, but you really do need to be your own best friend. And they say you come into the world alone and you leave the world alone. And it sounds maybe cold and heartless, and that's not where I mean it from. And I know, Denise, that's not where you mean it from. You mean it from a place of you have to truly love unconditionally every bitty bit of you and wrap yourself up in a warm, cozy blanket and just know that it'll be okay. And there's more to come on the horizon, and make some plans and do some things. And obviously, as a caveat, if you're in a dark place and you can't get out, then seek help.
Yeah, absolutely. I do not want to blame anybody for that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very natural that you get depressed, and I also experience that. I mean, not everything is.
No, it's not all hunky dory. We're actual humans. Yeah.
So sunshine is nice, but it's not the only thing that comes with your life. But
that said, next to me, I've got my vitamin D daylight lamp, so I can turn it back on. And ooh, look! Now I have a glow around my face. so yes, there are times when the sun isn't shining, and you are definitely in a place. But if you can somehow summon the sun towards you in some way, even if it means turning on your $29.99 Amazon sunlight lamp.
Absolutely. And you have to take care for that.
Yeah.
You have to be active in that. It's not for granted that other people would serve the sunlight for you.
Yeah.
Nobody would, beside Frederick. I mean.
Good old Frederick. All right. I think that is on my agenda. All right, Denise, I want to sign off here because we've been over an hour, but I am so thankful for you spending so much time with me today. And I know this is such a valuable episode and you're going to help so many people. And thank you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. And I really enjoy that being with you here. And yeah, I really continue enjoying your podcast and everything that you're doing there. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Do you have a slow living story to share? Leave me a voicemail at stephanieodea.com/podcast with any questions, comments, feedback, or testimonials, and I will be sure to include it in an upcoming episode. Also, if you found value in this episode, please share it with your family and friends and subscribe through your favorite podcast provider. The more you share, comment, and leave positive reviews, the more people we can reach and share the slow living lifestyle and messaging. Thank you, Slow Down Society, and have an absolutely wonderful day.